Okie dokie, we're gonna get started over here. Welcome to the Destination Stewardship Panel. Alrighty, so we all know this is a planning conference, but what happens when a plan goes from PDF to implementation? That's something that we're going to be talking about here today from this amazing panel of Taos leaders and our conversation around what destination stewardship looks like in Taos. So destination stewardship is a lot more than just a buzzword or two buzzwords, and it's a lot more than just something happening in Taos. It's happening around the world. And what it recognizes is that as travel increases, so do the pressures and the opportunities around travel. And as communities see this increase in travel, they're realizing that, oh, we can't address these pressures from tourism on infrastructure, housing. If y'all just went to the housing talk in the other room, you learned about our situation in Taos. We can't address these things alone. We have to address them as a team. So, everyone at your tables has a few different packets about what destination stewardship is and how we're approaching it. Feel free to look through those either before, during, or after. My name is Jessie Hook, and I'm the network manager for the destination stewardship effort here in our community. I originally came from Alabama, Roll Tide, if anyone is a football fan. I don't actually care, but that's okay. I moved to Taos in 2019. I was doing conservation work, and like a lot of different visitors that come to Taos, I was taken by the amazing vistas and landscapes. But the reason why I stayed was the community, and the community that has those values of waving to each other on the street, of connecting with each other, of helping out and showing up. And I think a lot of those values that I was attracted to and why I stuck around is what makes this place so unique and what makes this place so resilient. But resiliency is not something, as I'm sure all of you know, does not come from working alone. And it's something that is necessary when you're in a rural, remote community. You have to work together. So the people that have come together today to talk about destination stewardship are leaders that are working together towards that collaborative solution. They're all volunteers advancing the priorities of the Destination Stewardship Plan, which was officially adopted by the town of Taos in 2024, and was born from over 3,300 community voices. Over 3,300 community voices came together to shape the plan. You all know plans. And these people are working to actually advancing what those priorities were from our community. So, we'll talk about what it does actually look like balancing the costs and the benefits of tourism in Taos, and how this work recognizes that thriving communities make a better visitor experience. And a phrase that I really like is that a great place to live is a great place to visit, but the other way around isn't necessarily true. So, how can we authentically assess the impacts of tourism and creatively work to mitigate the negative impacts? And how can we foster collaboration across local government, across our sovereign tribal nations, across our businesses and our residents, making space to work together? That's something that we're doing through this network-based approach. And that work is always centering on equity and making sure to continually amplify those voices of community. So not just amplify voices of community that one time when we did the plan, but continually make that effort. So I want to shout out to the Destination Stewardship Plan groups and the people that made it possible. Huge shout out to our partners. George Washington University was a really big part of putting this plan together. Of course, those Taos County residents that all came together to voice their opinions. And then huge gratitude and appreciation to the town, the county, Taos Pueblo, and all the other people that continually show up month to month to all of our meetings and the sustained partnership that makes this possible. So, I'm honored to introduce today's panel. We have Pedro, who is the owner and operator of Rosita's Mexican store, which is right around the corner, so if you're looking for really awesome snacks and the best tortillas in town, that's the place to go. Then we have Karina Armijo, who is the original, the first tourism and marketing director for the town of Taos. and now is the director of the outdoor recreation division for the state. And then we have Jessica Stern, who is the economic development director for Taos County. Charles Whitson, who is the executive director of Taos MainStreet, if you went on the tour yesterday. And then we have Rima, Krisst, who is the new Taos Tourism and Marketing Director for the town of Taos. So, without further ado, let's jump into some of the questions. All right, so Karina, coming to you first. As the first Director of Marketing and Tourism for the town of Taos, you were also is this working still?
Yeah.
Okay. You were also the first to articulate the need for destination stewardship. What were some of the signs that this community needed destination stewardship?
Okay, is it working?
Yeah,
Okay.
you just have to talk right into it.
Okay. When I had started as the tourism director in 2015, really the goal was more tax revenue, more money equals success. And as we were doing that, we were winning on that front, but there was a lot of stuff going on around that I was realizing, and that was like more traffic, not enough capacity to fulfill the needs of doing these big events, a lot of infrastructure issues. And what I was realizing was that it started to become an issue with our locals, like the Great Divide is what I call it. And this was pre-pandemic times where friends would come up and say, could you stop bringing the tourists here because they're affecting my daily life thing. And it's funny but not funny at that time, because we know we need the business, but at the same time there were concerns. And so when I had heard about destination stewardship, it was happening around the country in certain countries, but not in the United States so much. And then of course, pandemic issues it just made those issues so much more worse. And the thing is that when we think about it, it's like our town is 7,000 people, but our infrastructure was only was dealing with tens of hundreds of thousand people coming through. And so we were seeing it on so many different levels, and it was shocking and concerning at that point. But it was hard to articulate to the folks that were making the decisions. What is stewardship, and what do you mean? You're doing such a great job. So that's when that kind of started.
Now in your role at the state, are there things that inform the work that you do now that you learned and saw in Taos and in this community?
Yeah, the biggest thing is you need to listen to your community. Obviously, I'm a traveler myself, and I definitely want to go to places where community feels good about their community. And instead of building things that are for tourists, we should be building things for communities so that tourists can enjoy those things. So, and having, for my job now, because it's outdoor rec related, that's even more important. The planning, who's around the table, making sure all of the different community is heard, to make sure that when you're moving those things forward, you're not doing it with one thing in mind, and that's like how much money can we make and how much tax dollars can we generate.
Thank you for that. So making sure to center community and work, no matter if it's in Taos or across the state, and involve them in the planning process and really listening to what they need. The next question is for Charles. So our MainStreet districts are the heart of both local life and the visitor experience. What is Taos MainStreet doing to balance creating a vibrant civic space for residents while also welcoming visitors?
Thank you, Jesse. So I think first it starts with really realizing that both of those ideas can and should be mutually reinforcing. When we really take the idea of the word stewardship seriously. So, when we talk about stewardship, we're talking about stewardship of place, stewardship of culture, stewardship of community values, and we really let those things So, we consider downtown to really be sort of the front door for visitors in a lot of ways in our community, and it's definitely a cultural hub. So, we kind of look at it through a dual lens. How can we increase or improve the quality of life for residents, and how can the visitor experience reinforce and not really erode that quality of life at the same time? So for us, it really is about centering residents first. We think when we invest in public spaces, when we support local serving businesses, and when we amplify the diverse cultures and voices that really make Taos unique, we're not only improving quality of life, but we're actually creating, those things really help create experiences that we think visitors want to have when they come in, what they're actually seeking. So we think, I don't want to use the word byproduct, but I couldn't find a better word than that. So we think that, tourism really works best when it's the byproduct of a really healthy community. And finally, again, it's about balancing those two things. So building vibrant, welcoming space that reflects the needs and identities of residents. We think that we can steward tourism that really uplifts those same values. So really, when done well, both of those things strengthen the other.
So I have a surprise question for you. Some things that we're doing in the network is investing in 2 priority projects that were identified by the community from our plan. One of them, Taos MainStreet, is the host of this year, which is a cultural events fund. And I was wondering a little bit of how you could talk about how that cultural events fund is looking to contribute to your mission of Taos MainStreet.
Sure. I think during the planning process, one of the things that emerged that we heard from the community is like, we have all of these resources come in to Taos through tourism, but why are some of these things disappearing? And something that did rise to the top were cultural events. We used to have more, and now there seemed to be less. And I think there was a real question in the community of like, why are these things disappearing? Why are they struggling with funding when we have the level of resource that's constantly coming into the community? So developing a cultural events program or fund was identified as a key priority around equity in tourism. We believe that building a vibrant civic space in our community, cultural events are obviously a key to that, and a key to the community feeling welcome downtown, welcome in their own plaza. So we're really excited to launch this fund. We're kind of taking a bit of a MainStreet approach to it, where we're pairing funding with some technical assistance. So when people that apply to the fund are required to attend a workshop where we're going to have some local experts from the community who are really going to kind of give everybody a 101 of like, hey, here are the things you need to be thinking of if you want to host an event. Everything from logistics to marketing and those kind of things. So once they complete the workshop, there'll be an application, and then they'll be in a position to actually receive some funding to put on their cultural event. We think this pairs very well with the county's lodgers tax grant fund, which is really focused on the marketing aspects of events. This is really trying to focus a bit more on operations and logistics. So we want to make this funding available to support some of those things that maybe the lodgers tax grant is unable to support.
So something that's really cool about this process is that we have action teams that design these priority initiatives. So that cultural events fund was designed by a cross-sector collaboration of folks that met together every month, volunteered their time to talk about, okay, how can we actually move the needle on this? So really excited to see that launch. Next, I'm going to turn to Pedro Sanchez and talk a little bit about a small business perspective. So, from a small business perspective, what are the unique challenges and opportunities that exist in Taos tourism economy, especially for the Latino and Hispanic entrepreneurs?
Thank you. Is it on? Yeah, I'm good. Big room. Thanks, guys. As a small business owner, a lot of the issues that I encounter personally is logistics, Taos is a small town and there's a lot of opportunity to grow here, but we do suffer a lot from companies not wanting to come out here because of the lack of investment opportunities, to say the least. That means products that I try and order, I have to wait a couple weeks, month. Low density packages means I don't have enough money to give these companies so that they can outsource their products to me. And as a business owner, that's very difficult to try and live off of that. Workforce, huge deal. If we had some kind of workforce housing, something that can make it easier for locals to be able to have housing and be able to work for the wages that we are able to give them. I, as a small business owner, cannot pay a huge amount of money as much as I'd like to because of the lack of investment in the town. With that opportunity, I can get more people to come into my store as employees and create more manufacturing jobs for the town of Taos. But there is opportunity. With investments, a lot of the products that we're working on ourselves here, if we create products as far as, more kitchens, community kitchens, more co-ops, deliverables, we can really grow this town a lot more.
Thank you for speaking to that. And I think it's really important to hear your perspective, because a lot of visitors come and are attracted to a lot of the cultural and aesthetic elements of Taos, which comes from the Hispanic and Latino community, as well as, of course, Taos Pueblo and our sovereign nations. But things like the doors that you see in this room, and a lot of the architecture that come from your community, and making sure to support businesses that support those parts of our community are integral to a visitor experience if you want to see it through that lens. Pedro is also part of one of our action teams for looking at product development, and we're also looking to launch a innovative tourism cohort where we're trying to welcome businesses to think about how can they design a business plan that benefits locals and visitors. So thank you for being a part of that. All right, there's the podium. Next, I want to turn to Rima Krisst, who's our Town of Taos Marketing and Tourism Director. Rima, with marketing with a stewardship lens, as you know, can be really, really tricky. How are you weaving stewardship principles into campaigns that resonate with both locals and visitors?
Thank you, Jesse. Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for being here, and thank you, my colleagues. I'm honored to work with this team up here and all the other people in Taos who are so passionate about preserving everything that makes Taos so special and unique. And that includes, as Charles was saying, our cultures, our environment, the heritage, the traditions, everything that makes Taos so beautiful. We want to keep it. And also, speaking to what Charles was saying, in my mind, this is really all about creating balance and harmony. Balance between visitorship and serving our locals, and finding a way that everyone can enjoy all that is so special about Taos and protect it at the same time. So a lot of this involves education. In terms of your question, Jesse, marketing can be tricky if you don't have all of the right assets to work with. So with any planning process, in order to move successfully into the future, you really need to analyze where you've been. And I follow on the heels of Karina, Armijo, who did a wonderful job founding the Town of Taos Marketing and Tourism Department. And now the times have changed a little bit too. We are evolving. COVID changed our markets. So there's a lot to integrate. But now we have this amazing plan called the Destination Stewardship Plan, which is basically my guide guiding light at this point. And in a way, my job has been made easy by all of the people who have preceded me, the incredible participation by the community, and we have a solid plan which now has to be integrated into all of our marketing and our advertising. So how do you do that? Well, as with any planning process, as you heard next door before, it takes time. It's a multi-step process. We have engaged with a new primary marketing PR agency, a creative agency. We are basically overhauling the whole brand and messaging with the town of Taos tourism to align with these values and principles that are already in the Destination Stewardship Plan.
So, sorry. No, all good. I've got your glasses and your little tray. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for speaking to that, Rima. One of the things you mentioned too, and I want to shout out Rima's team, was education and looking at marketing as an opportunity to educate. And Tammy's in the back too. Rima's done an amazing job in just a few months of establishing a pretty strong team in that department, along with the agency and with the visitor center. Y'all should go check out the visitor center while you're here. It's also just down the street. I'm curious if you could talk about what shifts in policy and practice you're using to make those stewardship values the norm in marketing materials and integrating that education, which is things you've already done. If you check out the Visit Taos Instagram page and Facebook, you can see some of their content.
Thank you, Jessie. I also want to mention you have a brochure in front of you that is basically a summary of all of the highlights of the Destination Stewardship Plan. Both Jessie and I worked on this brochure because the actual plan is about 110 pages. So we really wanted to bring out the essence of what is in that plan, which is one of my many guideposts at this point. So the process has been, policy-wise, the way you ensure that something is carried out into the future is you institutionalize it. You make it part of your program. So again, like anything, it takes time. What we've done is we began with our agencies doing a marketing and branding audit. We've held a branding workshop with many of our constituents who again are super passionate, knowledgeable, experienced, contributing to the actual new branding of Taos. With this input of the community, I can work with our agencies to formulate our brand messaging platform, our brand identity, our new visual brand, including logo. A lot of times when people hear brand, they just think, oh, logo, but it's not the equivalent. A branding platform includes several different pieces. And all of this, the other thing that we have done is visitor research in order to analyze where visitors are coming from. I mean, we knew that basic information, but in order, again, to look ahead to how do we want to market and advertise in the future, we need to examine what are our primary target markets, how do we want to expand that, do we want to go more international? All of these questions take a lot of time and consideration. So that's where we're at right now, and we will also be coming up with a new comprehensive marketing plan, and all of this is going to be based on community feedback and the tenets of the Destination Stewardship Plan.
Thank you so much, Rima. All right, so when we talk about a brand, and Taos has a brand, right? I mean, I'm sure you've all heard about Taos before coming here. We also think about upholding that brand promise, and Rima's team is doing an amazing job of really analyzing and developing that plan. But again, it takes a team, it takes a we, That's something that we've heard a lot in the past couple days. And I wanted to turn the mic next to Jessica Stern, who works within the county. And the county doesn't necessarily have a tourism and marketing department. She's an economic development director, but has been tasked with lodger's tax that comes through the county and has done some really innovative things in that space. So, Jessica, you've embedded destination stewardship in how you steward lodger's tax funds through a new grant and sponsorship program. Can you tell us about what that looks like, and what does it take to make systems reflect stewardship values rather than just economic goals?
Thanks, Jesse. First of all, how many folks are in the room, by a show of hands, are familiar with how lodger's tax works in the state? Okay, cool. So I'm not going to go super into depth on like policy lesson here, but just for the purposes of this conversation, any overnight stay that happens here in Taos County is charged 5% tax. So thank you all to those of you who are staying here for this conference. You are contributing to our lodger's tax fund. We appreciate you. That funding is mandated by state statute to be used in a variety of different ways, and one of those is through promotional activities. And so real quick, the statute states that lodger's tax, as recommended by an advisory board, must be used for the purposes of advertising, publicizing, and promoting tourist-related attractions, facilities, and events of the municipality or the county and the area. So by mandate, the grant funding that was handed to me, which when I started was about $2 million of unspent funds because the county's lodger's tax grant program had been put on pause during COVID, is mandated to be spent through marketing. And Charles mentioned that the Cultural Events Fund is looking at something different. There are some areas within New Mexico that have deemed through their procurement that they can use lodger's tax for entertainment. The county is not one of those. So the county stance is that we cannot use lodger's tax for anything other than advertising, publicity, and promotion, which is a really interesting thing when building a new lodger's tax grant program came at the exact same time as the Destination Stewardship Planning process. We rebuilt the advisory board. Again, everything had been disbanded during the pandemic, and until June of 2023 was when we started this process. And so what we did, I come from a nonprofit background, so for those of you who might be familiar with the nonprofit world, it's all about mission, vision, and goals, right? So we started with creating a mission statement and a set of values and a vision statement for our grant program. And so I want to just share what the group came up with as our mission statement, because again, this was happening at the same time as the Destination Stewardship Planning process. The mission is that the Taos County Lodger's Tax Grant Program supports tourist-related facilities, attractions, and events within Taos County by investing in funding proposals that use advertising, publicizing, and promotion to enhance the lives and journeys of locals and visitors alike, and that highlight the uniqueness of Taos County's culture, heritage, innovation, and diversity. And our vision statement is that we seek to increase the quality of life across Taos County as it can be experienced by visitors and lived by inhabitants. And so right in those two foundational statements, we wanted to root any kind of publicity and advertising and promotion in quality of life for our residents, for experiences lived by our residents and felt by visitors. We know that we want to focus, as everyone has said here, on the well-being of our people who live here first, and then create positive experiences for visitors. And so once we established that, everything trickled down into how are we going to explain that? How are we going to measure that? How are we going to score applications based on that? And so the applications are really scored on 5 goal areas. To encourage reciprocity, we want to make investments that encourage reciprocity between tourists and local residents, in such that tourists enrich and enhance the livability for locals. Preservation is a big one. Preserve the culture and heritage of Taos County, create that positive experience, We want to see innovation and creativity in how these organizations are marketing Taos County, and that there's a balance of promotion from within the county, because we want locals to come to things in their own community, and a balance of outside of the county. So not every single grant application needs to have all 5 of these things. If they do, they score higher. But they need to have really strong representation of some of these things. And so I think that, you know, putting these guidelines into policy, we passed a resolution, has really been incredible for kind of reframing how people think about their own events. We are now starting to train folks that advertising in the Taos News, no shade to the Taos News whatsoever, but is not the only way of getting folks to an event. There are so many different creative ways of marketing and promoting that are going to be attractive to locals and visitors. We've supported a number of small businesses that are that we can say are tourist-related attractions in helping them with their initial branding and advertising campaigns. So like Dale Productions, I don't know if any of you have been up to the K-Taos Solar Center. We pay for all of their initial branding and signage, advertising, social media, curation, photography, so that they could really launch as a destination space for locals and visitors. And now they're open 7 days a week. They have a ton of programming. It's very cool. Highly recommend it. I have a few other things to say, but I think I'm wandering, so I'll pause there.
Do you want to say one more thing?
No, because I lost my train of thought.
Okay. All right, so as you can see, it takes a team, it takes a village. There's a lot going on for how to advance destination stewardship in the wider Taos community. So not just the town, but the wider Taos community, which includes a lot of different pockets of our of communities, of people, of interests. The next question I want to offer up to everybody and see who would like to engage with it. Around destination stewardship requires collaboration. It can never be done by one entity. It requires to listen, to share power, to stay patient, and none of those things are easy. But you've all been doing this. What's one thing that you've learned through this process, and what keeps you inspired despite the challenges that can inform other people in the room and other people working towards collective action? Who wants to answer that? Collaboration is hard. What have you learned about it?
Well, I think one of the key words that comes to mind when I think about that for me is persistence. In our mobile tour yesterday, you know, I talked at a bunch of planners. But one of the things that you know, for me is, you know, I'm one of the people, as are everybody on the stage, that really show up to inform the planning process. You know, then the planners take all of that, they write the plan, and then there's a bit of a gap, I feel, that can be really hard to overcome, and it's a bit of a pitfall between the plan and the action that comes after the plan. And so I think it really requires collaboration. It requires a group of people who are persistent, saying that, hey, we identified this, we did all the work to craft this great plan. Now we've got to make sure some of these things actually happen. So persistence for me has been a big key. And then I want to channel a bit of Contessa. She's not with us now. She was instrumental in helping this entire planning process happen. Something that she said regularly to all of us was, you have to be willing to move at the speed of trust. I think tourism invokes a lot of strong opinions here, and I think there are people that really don't see much benefit to tourism in our community. And to engage them in a really meaningful conversation and to bring them into this collaborative effort, we've got to build relationships, we've got to build trust. And so sometimes moving at the speed of the trust is not the time frame that we all want to be operating on, but I think it's critical to these types of efforts.
Yeah, thank you for those words, and I think that's a lot of sentiment that we all share as we've been wrestling and working together to figure out how this process looks, what it means, what it looks like. And something that's resonated with me from yesterday, how many people went to the presentation about the work going on in Taos Pueblo with Holly speaking? Holly, she said something really inspiring about how the goal should be neutrality when we're trying to work together and thinking about systems and not just people, which is, you know, it's really hard. It's hard to look at a systems-wide perspective, but as planners, I know that's something you practice every day, I'm sure. And that really, really resonated with me, so shout out to Holly for that. But I wanted, with the little time that we have left, to turn it to y'all. We would love to hear from the audience if you have any questions for our panelists. Everyone's name is on the screen too.
I have a question about integration with your Destination Stewardship Plan with like the state's tourism department or any other efforts that are happening like outside of your control, and how that process has been or if it has happened.
Karina and Rima.
Well, I mean, I can talk about that. The Outdoor Recreation Division sits under the Economic Development Department, so separate from the Tourism Department. The only way that I can say is that we've taken what I've learned from this process into the work that we do at my division. For Tourism Department, you can speak to whether or not you've had conversations with them, but I have pushed them for years to just, at minimum, go to some of these conferences that talk about these things, because that was the hardest thing for me, was the vocabulary. What is stewardship? What do you mean? We're marketing, we're this, and so it's baby steps, and sometimes even at the higher level, it can be a challenge, and there's very few states that are doing this type of work. So it took me 7 years before I got somebody to actually listen to me, so it might take a little longer at the state level.
I think one of the things that's been really powerful in terms of integration and sort of my role as an intermediary between local business and state funding mechanisms is that collaboration, and it's just knowing. I didn't know Pedro before the Destination Stewardship Planning process. We sit on the product development team together and got to talking about how Pedro needed a new tortilla maker. And then we were able to introduce Pedro to the regional, what's that? RDC, yeah, the Regional Development Corporation. And he received $20,000 for new equipment, which is really exciting. And so it's about, I think, opening those channels of communication and relationship, as Charles was saying, so that we can connect all of these dots to support stewardship, whether that is through super small business economic development, resiliency, marketing and promotion. It's all related, and that's, for those of you who are in the session about Cultural Treasures Project, that's just another information gathering tool to help inform all of these processes. So none of these things really live in a vacuum.
Yeah, just a few comments. I've been very involved, obviously, nose to the ground, trying to implement this within the town of Taos, the Destination Stewardship. However, at any opportunity, any conversation I have while out in the community or elsewhere, I am talking about this because I am very passionate about it myself. I learned about the Destination Stewardship Plan when I was not working for the town of Taos, but was a resident here, and I participated. And what is happening here is super innovative. The concept of destination stewardship is just beginning to catch on. Maybe you have a better grasp on this, but I'm not sure how many communities across this country are embracing this. There are some international destinations that are working on this concept, but it really, if you think about it, is very much in line with some of the global trends we're seeing about preserving cultures, preserving indigenous knowledge, and, you know, holding the light for preserving heritage and not caving into material concerns all the time. So I'm very proud, I feel very fortunate to be working for Taos, and I'm not surprised, because here always we wake up and, you know, we look up at the sky and the mountain. That's the orientation here, you know, the beauty of nature and the water, the land, the people, the animals, how everything interconnects. I have an acequia in my backyard, so when I go sit out and have my coffee in the morning, there's running water going by me that's coming from the mountain. So that's how I think, and so we are still in this process of rebranding. We're changing our creative assets. We need new photography, videography. Everything is being overhauled. So once we're done, the goal is to have our new marketing plan by January or February. It's about, I would say, a 10-month process. Then we can really be sharing, and obviously it'll be evident in our advertising and our messaging what's been happening here. So we hope, as a community and as a group, speaking for the Destination Stewardship Network that Jesse runs, that ultimately Taos will, be a leader and a model in this area. So if anybody would like to speak with me, I'm happy to.
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists, thank you for your question around integration with the state, and I'm glad the panelists started thinking about and talking about integration with a larger tone of things and the need for destination stewardship across the country and the world. I'm part of some working groups that are pursuing destination stewardship in the U.S. and then abroad. And it's often that it gets mixed up with simply something that a destination management organization or a destination marketing organization takes hold of, a DMO. And I put a sheet on everyone's table for the planners in the room, which is everyone, that talks about, and it has these circles. These circles on the back with the blue, that talk about how destination stewardship is the larger circle that encompasses marketing, it encompasses management, encompasses many different things about what makes our community and what contributes to stewardship. And I know, based on the conversations I've had with other leaders, that Taos is leading in an innovative way and an innovative management approach through this network. Innovation means really exciting, and it also means kind of clunky at times, but I could not be more honored to work with these folks every day and every month towards this. So please come and ask them questions, engage with them, engage with me. I put a QR code in my email, as well as the website, which is on taos.org if you'd like to learn more. So can we get another round of applause for our panelists? Thank you so much.